can. Good afternoon and welcome to the Public Works meeting for December 6th. I have with us Councilmember Marley Larimer, Councilmember Seth Winder-Core, Public Works Director Chad Bieren, and keeping us on track is Cheryl Seth. We are going to start off with, I think, approval of the minutes. We've just done roll call. There are no changes to the agenda, is that correct? No changes. Okay.
Chair, I move to approve the minutes dated November 15th, 2021.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right.
It has passed and the agenda is approved from November 15th. So next we're going to move on to the business of the addendum to interlocal agreement for Watershed Basin within Water Resource Inventory number 8, or RIA 8. Mike Mactutis?
Good evening, Committee Chair, committee members. This is a very simple addendum proposal that I'll be going over a very short presentation with you. Just to refresh you on what RIA 8 is first. It's very similar to the Green Duwamish RIA 9 that we spend a lot of time on. We are also a participant in RIA 8, which is the Lake Washington Cedar Sammamish watershed because of our Clark Springs water supply. That is the only presence we have in that watershed, but it is of critical importance to us. And it's a good tool for us to work with the other jurisdictions in that watershed. One of in addition to the watersheds that are listed there, it also includes some areas along the Puget Sound north of the Ship Canal Bridge. So going north all the way up to, in this case, Everett, which is requesting that they be admitted to RIA 8. So that's what the addendum is about. So RIA 8, as I mentioned, is very similar to RIA 9. It's a little bit bigger, 29 local governments in that. The meetings are very well attended, so and they get some good presentations at those, and like I mentioned, a lot of good presence from even the smaller cities along the east side of Lake Washington send a lot of members. So it's the local agencies, community organizations, businesses, citizens, trying to get everybody together to work together with scientists and electeds and everybody to try and recover the salmon in that watershed. They have a lot of challenges in that watershed related to Lake Washington, trying to get the salmon through Lake Washington up to Sammamish and the Cedar River. The city pays into that watershed similar to RIA 8, but a much smaller amount because our presence is so small. And as I mentioned, City of Everett is requesting that they be admitted. That under the interlocal agreement that the City of Kent is a party to, all of the agencies have to agree to that. But it does change the shares a little bit, so the total amount of funding from the city stays the same. City of Everett, which makes up about 1% of the watershed, would be just taking up their share. And so for 2022, like I mentioned, the city's share is relatively small, $206. So out of the total of $645,000 among all the jurisdictions. And that is my presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
That is a very small share for that region, especially comparatively speaking to 9.
Right.
Any questions from either of you? Comments?
Questions?
Well, thank you very much for that presentation, and I think we're ready for a motion.
Chair, I move to authorize the mayor to sign the addendum to interlocal agreement for the watershed basins within Water Resource Inventory Area 8, subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to Public Works Director and City Attorney.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve admitting Everett in, so to make the amendment addendum to the interlocal agreement for Watershed Basin within the Water Resource Inventory Area 8. Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
It will move on to full council. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And next we have up Kelly Peterson, who's going to give us some information on transportation, the improvement board for the Urban Arterial Program Grant.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. This evening, I'm going to do one presentation for the next 3 items for you, all related to the Transportation Improvement Board. The first time the City of Kent received funding from the Transportation Improvement Board was actually in the early 1980s. And since that time, there's been a plethora of projects and millions of dollars that we have partnered with Transportation Improvement Board to help us build our community that we have today. Well, I'm happy to bring 3 additional projects to you this afternoon for your consideration. The city did apply for 3 projects from TIB, and we received all 3, which is no small feat. That's pretty remarkable. Some of the projects that we have funded in the past with Transportation Improvement Board is 132nd Avenue pedestrian improvements. We got that project done. The following year, we submitted for the segment to the north, and we did receive funding for that. 256th Street from 116th to 132nd. It was a 2-lane road, no pedestrian facilities. That project added pedestrian facilities and buffer strips to the road up in that area. It also helped fund South 224th Street from 88th to 94th. The 228th Street grade separation, I believe there's about $3 million in funding from the TIB for that project. 76th Avenue raising, complete streets, and many, many more. So today, before you, for your consideration, is some funding for Urban Arterial Program through TIB. This is at Reith Road from South 253rd Street down the hill to SR 516. And this project will do a couple of things. By Reith Road and KDM up to Lake Fenwick Road, there's a missing sidewalk segment. So this will add the missing sidewalk segment on the south side of the road. It will add a roundabout at Lake Fenwick Road and Reith Road. There'll be a road diet between Lake Fenwick Road and South 253rd Street. And to complete the project as you get up the hill, there'll be another roundabout at South 253rd Street. So the upper right-hand corner, and that's a photo of the intersection of Lake Fenwick Road, which is just off to the left right here, and Reith Road. I do want to point out that there is transit bus stops in this area as well. So this will be helpful for people accessing transit. And in the bottom left-hand corner is the photo of South 253rd Street and Reith Road. That's where the second roundabout will be. The 2 other projects that we received funding for is the sidewalk program. So it's through the sidewalk program at TIB, and this is in front of Russell Road Park Russell Road at Hogan Park. I've been here for a long time. In Kent, I grew up here, so I still call it Russell Road. But you can see these folks on the right. They're walking. We have the sidewalk here. They're probably turning into the park, but this project will allow the city to continue the sidewalks further to the south. We still have a segment that we need to construct in the future to connect down to Meeker, but this is a really good project. And then the last piece is actually right in front of the Public Works and Parks Operations shops buildings on South 240th, and this connects a segment of missing sidewalk today. So our goal is to get those designed and constructed in 2022. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have for us.
Questions from either of my colleagues? No? In that case, we are ready for a motion.
I move to authorize the mayor to accept grant funds from the Transportation Improvement Board for the Urban Arterial Program, Reith Road, in the amount of $1,595,000. Amend the budget, authorize expenditure of the grant funds accordingly, authorize expenditure of up to $897,795 in local matching grant funds from the B&O Fund, and authorize the mayor to sign all necessary documents subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the city attorney and public works director.
Second.
It has been moved to and seconded to accept these funds and the expenditures mentioned. All in favor?
Aye.
It has passed. So, it is no small feat to be able to get the grant. So one thing that we really appreciate is all of our departments. We know that all of you guys are spending or getting a lot of the work done that we get done because you're writing grants to go along with to get it done. So, and that these projects don't happen willy-nilly, that there's actually a plan and prioritization that goes along with all of this to make sure that we are getting everything done equitably throughout the city also. So your work is very much appreciated. Thank you.
think there's two more motions.
Yes.
Chair, I move to authorize the mayor to accept grant funds from the Transportation Improvement Board for the Urban Sidewalk Program at Hogan Park in the amount of $465,000, amend the budget, authorize the expenditure of grant funds accordingly, authorize the expenditure of up to $163,380 in local matching funds for the BNO fund, and authorize the mayor to sign all necessary documents subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the city attorney and public works director.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded this time for the Urban Sidewalk Program to at Hogan Park to accept the funds that, or the dollar amounts that were mentioned. All in favor?
Aye.
It has been moved, and those funds will be accepted. So thank you very much.
Chair, I move to authorize the mayor to accept grant funds from the Transportation Improvement Board for the Urban Sidewalk Program on South 240th Street between Russell Road and Lakeside Boulevard East in the amount of $312,000. Amend the budget, authorize expenditures of grant funds accordingly, authorize expenditures of up to $110,040 in local matching funds from the B&O Fund, and authorize the mayor to sign all necessary documents subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the city attorney and public works director.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to authorize the mayor to accept the funds for the Urban Sidewalk Program. And the funds is mentioned from B&O. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It has been moved and seconded, and all three motions have passed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And again, no small feat and very much appreciated with all of this transportation stuff, because without it, we wouldn't have it done. Oh, and I'm sorry, we have now the agreement for Totem Logistics for on-call garbage cleanup. So we have with us Tony Donati.
Thank you, Council Chair, Council members. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you this afternoon. My name is Tony Donati. I'm the Conservation Coordinator here in the Public Works Engineering Department. Today, I'm going to talk to you about two different topics, the first of which is to authorize an agreement with Totem Logistics for on-call garbage cleanup services on city-owned property. We're becoming more and more aware that there is an increasing problem with illegal dumping on city-owned properties and right-of-ways. Typically, when this occurs, on city property, the city is responsible for the cleanup. That means we have to find qualified junk haulers, collect bids, create a contract, and remove that debris as soon as possible. Now, sometimes, depending on the circumstances, our operations team may be available to perform this work, but with the amount of dumping that we're seeing and the size of the loads, they're not always available. So this creates a problem because the longer that the piles and the dumping sit there, they start accumulate other dumping. So we have identified some public works properties that are ready to move right away. We're ready to move right away on. Some of these are capital project sites and others are drainage sites that affect water quality. So we want to as soon as this contract is set up, we want to get it and start moving on these right away. In September, staff advertised an RFP for an on-call garbage cleanup contractor. After a thorough review of the proposers, staff recommends Totem Logistics to perform this work. And today I'm requesting the approval of this contract for an on-call garbage cleanup services of illegal dumping on city-owned property for an amount not to exceed $115,000. That will initially go through September of 2022. The amount from this, the amount of this dollar, sorry, the money, this is where it's coming from $45,000 will come from the Department of Ecology in our local solid waste financial assistance agreement. $15,000 comes as a match of the grant from our drainage utility fund, and then the remaining amount will come from capital projects that require illegal dumping services. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Questions?
I did have a question. There's a lot of stars on that graph. Will 115,000 cover everything that we showed, or?
Unfortunately not.
Okay.
However, those are just some of the sites that we've identified now, and this will go towards those. And I think we can knock off quite a few of them, and being that we have identified them, those locations, and we're waiting for this contract so we can just start chipping away at it. So we feel really good, but unfortunately it won't cover the entire problem in the city.
Okay, so it's obviously something we'll need to take up in the next budget, take a look at. Okay, thank you.
We also have some areas that, although they're within the city, are actually county property. So, and we've had some issues with getting the county to come out and clean up basically their mess that is here in our city in a timely manner. Has that gotten any better? I was, as you drive by or around Frager Road over by 516, you really notice some of the drops, some of the trash.
Yeah, so some of that area is in King County, but it's within an area of the Downey Farmstead project where we have a permit. So we will be cleaning that up. That'll fit under that $55,000 of capital projects if it's north of 516. South of 516, it's in the county, but it's on private property. So, or it's the Department of Transportation's responsibility. So we're working with them to take care of those areas. But everything on that north side of 516 still is our responsibility until the Downey project is complete. So that's another avenue that we're looking at to try and hurry up the Downey project and get it done, turn it back to the county.
Okay.
And then we'll as Councilmember Larmer pointed out, Committee Member Larmer, we'll be coming back with additional contracts as needed, and that'll help us, all of us, keep track of what we're spending to keep up with these sites. This is our kind of our first blush guess of what it's going to cost to keep up with those start areas, but it'll run out fast. It's very expensive. We have in-house staff. We use them as much as possible, but we can't keep up with some of these larger sites with just the 2 existing crew members, and we have 2 more coming at the first of the year. And those folks will be keeping up the right-of-way primarily and then working on sites like this. But for right now, it's just too much for them to keep up with.
And is that part of the litter patrol?
Those 4 members will be part of the litter strike team.
All right. And we are ready for a motion.
Chair, I move to authorize the mayor to sign the goods and services agreement with Totem Logistics in the amount of $115,000 for the cleanup and removal of encampments, dumping on city-owned properties and right-of-ways, subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to Public Works Director and City Attorney.
Second.
So it has been moved and seconded to enter an agreement with Totem Logistics for the cleanup of the dumping and the encampments for $115,000. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries, and this will be going on to the full council. Thank you. And you have another one that you would like to speak to us about.
Yes, thank you, yeah. The second item I'd like to speak with you about this afternoon is a solid waste rate adjustment through King County's solid waste rate adjustment. King County has confirmed a rate increase for January 1st of 2022. Typically, this type of increase happens every 2 years. However, with COVID, they delayed the last increase, which was in 2019. This is just a little reminder that the City of Kent and King County has an interlocal agreement. And within that agreement, it states that all of the city's trash needs to go to the Cedar Hills landfill, which is the county's last remaining and operating landfill. Now, when we're looking at the rate structure, it's comprised of two components. We have the collection component and then the disposal component. The collection component is administered through the city's contract with Republic Services, while the disposal rates are set by King County. And so today, we're only talking about the disposal component. On January 1st, 2022, King County is raising the disposal rates from $140.82 to $154.02 per ton. Revenue from the rate increase will allow King County to provide essential services at the landfill and transfer stations. They'll continue programs within the comprehensive solid waste management plan, such as replacing the South County transfer station at Algona. And it also will continue to fund grants that the city depends on, like our WRR grant. And that grant funds our recycling events and our outreach and education efforts throughout the community. So the average customer with a 32-gallon container, they should expect to see a 49-cent increase per month or $1.47 on their quarterly bill before taxes and surcharges. And then this is just also a reminder that come April 1st, we will see another rate adjustment. And this is our annual rate adjustment, which is within the contract the city has with Republic Services. And finally, if anyone has any questions about any of the rate adjustments that we are going to see here in the near future, they can contact the county, Republic Services, or myself, and check out our website, Tony Donati. My phone number is 253-856-5589 or tdonati@kentwa.gov with questions.
Thank you very much for adding on that last part, the contact information, because even though this is a King County, you're still going to be able to help them out and give them a little bit of information. Any questions?
No questions?
What will the rate increase will be by the city? So we'll have two rate increases, one in January by King County. So what will be the impact on the city? Because I'm sure we'll be hearing about that from our residents.
Are you talking about for the one we'll see in January?
No, the one we'll see in April.
In April, yeah. So by February 14th, we will see those initial numbers that we'll get from Republic Services. And that's based off the three economic indices. That's our cost, the CPI. Let me back up here. Yeah, it's the Consumer Price Index, fuel, and the Employment Compensation Index. So it's comprised of those three indices. And so we'll see those in February, and then we'll come back for sure and let you know what that impact's going to be in late March.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that information. And then we have the fencing improvements.
Thank you very much.
Cheryl, could you set me up on the first?
Director Chad Bieren is taking this.
Next slide, please.
I had my microphone off there, sorry. We're going to hear about some fencing improvements from Director Chad Bieren.
Thank you. I want to make sure my mic's on. I have a green light. Can everybody hear me out there? Okay. Three items, information only. You'll hear a little bit more about one of the items, Hogan Park, where we're going to be doing some fencing near our operations facility because we know the price of that fencing, it will trigger the need for a budget adjustment. So I'll cover that when we get that item. But the first one I want to talk about was fencing in alleys downtown. So the alleys that serve the businesses that are bordering, well, they're bordered by Central Avenue on one side and Railroad Avenue on the other, and then they have alleys that run up and down the middle for utilities and garbage service, and then, of course, access for deliveries. Those alleys are having some issues with crime, and I'm sure council members remember that we'd had a visit from some of the business owners at the last council meeting. We've been working with several of those owners already to fence those alleys off and help provide some security. The graphic shows on the north end there is the alley. That one's under in process right now. The second one down is the alley behind Gonnison's and Marine. That alley has actually been closed off for about 4 or 5 years by agreement with Gonnison's and the neighboring properties, where they came in. We gave them what's called a limited street license that allows them to put the fencing up. And if you look at the fencing that's out there, it's pretty industrial looking. It's a 6-foot chain link fence with wire, razor wire on top to keep people out and keep crime down in the overnight hours. And they have a gate that they open up during the day, and they allow people to come through there for deliveries and also to operate the business. So they've essentially eliminated those problems that the owners we'd heard from during the council meeting are experiencing. Those other locations are kind of in process right now. And the process is the business owners come in, get agreement with their neighbors that everybody's okay with not allowing alley access anymore, and then they get together and put the fence up, and then we give them the license. That process could take a little bit of time because they're working together with their neighbors to get everybody in agreement that, yes, I don't need access to the alley anymore. But I know that we have staff members that work through it with them, and they have a third-party fencing contractor come in and put the fence up. So again, hope to have those all in place over the next couple of months. This just depends on the final permitting and approvals from the city, and then however long it takes their contractor to get out there and get the work done. So that's the alley fencing. Any specific questions folks might have on that? Okay. Next slide, please. Thank you. South of Willis, on both First Avenue on the west and Railroad on the east, we've had a lot of issues over the years with folks crossing that section of track without making their way up to Willis Street. It's a fairly long section. Not a lot of reason to go across there, but there are reasons. If you're on the east side of the tracks living over there, there's a park on the west side of the tracks. It's also, if you're in general on your way over to the west, it's easier just to cross the tracks and then make your way up to Willis through the neighborhood that's on Crow Street there. However, that can be a pretty dangerous crossing. We have issues with train speeds through there are fast, and folks have a lot of trouble negotiating those tracks and really understanding just how fast those trains are going. So as part of the quiet zone process, the railroads had asked that we fence these areas, and we're wanting to do that sooner rather than later. We're also having issues in this same area with cars parking, and both abandoned stolen vehicles and then long-term parking that's illegal. A lot of that's on railroad property. So that will be coming back to council with. It's likely to exceed $100,000, and we're going to use the quiet zone budget for paying for that fencing. And then the last one, as I mentioned earlier, Paula will bring through as a budget adjustment. The utility funds are going to pay for this, the majority of this fencing. Those cars are owned by operations division personnel. They park in the Hogan Park parking lot that's right behind our operations center during the day, and then it's available evenings and weekends for the park and for park patrons, largely when we get the big crowds for softball tournaments and things. So our issue has been during the day, we've actually had a lot of theft. People rolled in there both day and then during the winters in the early morning hours when it's still dark, because of course our operations guys are getting here anywhere. Dave rolls in here like 4 and 4:30 in the morning, and the last people leave here at 4:30 and 5 in the afternoon, so it can be pretty dark. And we've had a lot of thefts, broken windows, and it's just something we feel like we need to help out our staff. No one wants to go to work and then come out and find their window broken and their items stolen from inside their car. So it'd just be the back area along operations, fencing that and putting gates on both sides. Gates will be closed during the workday and then opened up for the evenings and weekends so that, of course, the parking area can be used by park patrons as they normally would use it. Again, though, just wanted as an information item tonight, and then it'll come to operations tomorrow as an adjustment, because it is over $100,000 to get all that fencing and those gates in. It's looks small on the map, but it's a pretty good size area.
So the idea is that it would be closed during the day, and if I'm coming to work a couple hours after the bulk of people, they have a pass, or how will the gates be opened?
Yeah, so if an operations member needs to get in there, they can go get somebody from operations to let them in. We kind of jokingly said it's a good reason to make it to work on time. You'll be on the outside looking in if you show up late. But they have much more shift-centered work. They work in crews, so everybody tends to show up on time. If they have an appointment, we can make an accommodation for them. But otherwise, yeah, it's get in, lock everybody in, keep them safe, and then let them out in the evening.
Right.
You do not want to be in front of the out gate when it's time to leave in the afternoon. It's like the Flintstones. It's there.
Any other comments, questions?
Nope.
Well, then, that is our last information item. And
We all made it.
our last item on the agenda, so thank you very much, everyone. Thank you guys very much, and we will see you next time. And that will be in 2022
Wow.
for our next one meeting. So the meeting is adjourned.